Hi everybody, Beth here from Access Paranormal. For this week's I Want to Know, a big thank you to everybody who has wished me well. I've been unwell with the flu for the last 2 weeks. It really kicked my butt, but I kicked its butt back in the last couple of days, and I was able to go to Q Station and have a fabulous investigation there as well with some wonderful, wonderful people. Big thank you to those people. You know who you are. So yes, I'm back and feeling a lot better. So thank you to everybody who was wishing me well for that. Now, this particular topic has been one of probably the more trickier ones to research per se, I think, and also be able to talk about it in a very neutral way, because a lot of people could be very much a very skeptical individual, or could be very believing individual when it comes to paranormal investigating. Hi, Kaz. So it's generally, when it comes to paranormal investigators in the general community, you will find that a lot of people will kind of sway between either a believer or a skeptic sort of viewpoint when it comes to investigating techniques. Very rarely you'll find a lot of people that are very much a skeptic or very much a believer, but I will be talking about that in those terms as well. Thank you, darling. Cass says I look awesome. $50 in the mail for you, sweetie. So yeah, it's generally, think of it as like a gauge. So there's a whole gauge going across, and there's a skeptic side, and then there's the believer side. I obviously, I'm a big fan of being, dead in the middle as much as one can, but obviously that depends on, the case you're dealing with. It depends on the venue, depends the people that you're around as well. That does make quite a bit of a difference as well. Oh, good day from glorious North Queensland. Should be a great show. Oh, thank you. Fabulous. So yes, it is, there are pros and cons of having a skeptical mindset and a believer mindset. I think both is needed in the field. I think, and we'll talk a little bit more about that soon. Agnostic, also known as open-minded skeptic. Yes, well, actually, funny enough, Glenn, a lot of people in the field identify themselves as being an open-minded skeptic, or some people say skeptical believer. I know Andrew had mentioned that when I posted this before. So some people actually like to think of themselves really midway, but sort of looking at it not just from either side extreme, but also kind of in the middle, and they have terms that they use that can help explain that as well. Hi Jules, good to see you, beautiful. Yay, Nate's here, excellent. So I'll get stuck into it. So, right, what are the pros? So we're going to look at skeptics first, okay? Everyone just goes, oh my God. I will be, at the point of this recording, be on a panelist for Skepticon here in Sydney in October. So I will be on a panel for paranormal topics. So I know a lot of people kind of like, walk in with a bulletproof vest, but no, I should be fine. So no, again, I'm really looking forward to be honest, it's a fabulous group of people. But yes, skeptics, right, I digress. Let's look at the pros of holding a skeptical belief. Oh, hello, hi. Oh, Elaine comes all the way from Canada as well. Mwah, beautiful, lovely, good to see you. Hi, Charmaine. She's from Tassie as well. Good to see you here too. So skeptical's pros, right. Having somebody who's got a skeptical, and I'm talking full-on skeptical belief, knowledge, passion, and value is really, really good. They're very, very logical, very, very good with their critical thinking. If anything happens on an investigation, they tend to pull it apart quite well. They really do look at questioning the phenomena itself that's occurred, and not, obviously not holding any belief of anything being paranormal or anything coming from the spirit realm or the other side. And I think that's really, really important to have. It's that very, very grounding way to investigate. And a lot of people may think, well, if you're a full skeptic, you wouldn't even be in a paranormal investigation, because it's like, I don't like Vegemite, but I'm going to go to the Vegemite factory. Like, what the hell? So it's, it's like, why would you be there if it's not something you want to be, believe in? But it's really, there are a lot of people that do hold a very strong skeptical belief, but also have a fascination about different topics. But having that kind of person in an investigation is really, really good. It does help with the team. It does bring them and into a very, very grounded perspective. And obviously that is due to the fact that they hold a very strong method, in the fact that they base themselves on facts. So skeptics will base themselves on what has been proven by science at the time. and at this time and point in time, so they will actually bring that into an investigation as well, which is important, because that's the facts as they are as we speak right now. They may change in time, absolutely, but at this point in time, science says that spirits and ghosts and entities don't exist, and as much as some of us may feel that may not be quite right, we still have to respect that anyway as well. You don't like Vegemite? Oh, I do like Vegemite, Glenn. I love Vegemite. It's fabulous. Only a little bit. You only got to scrape it in Australia. It's not like, Nutella where you can lather it on. It's too much overkill. Much more, keeping it real. Absolutely, Kaz. It's keeping it real. Skeptical mindsets, keeping it real and really, really quite balanced. So, of course, with the pros, that's awesome. The cons of having somebody who is considers themselves a skeptic would be that sometimes it could be too much. They lean too much towards the cynical side of it. So that and for those who may not really understand what cynical means, more so from the point of view of being bitter about it. So that can be a bit of a roadblock when you're out on an investigation. If something was to occur, people think, oh, it could be this, it could be that. A cynical skeptic may say, well, no, that doesn't exist, and that's not going to happen. That's crap, basically. Well, that's great, but we need to keep our minds open to all different types of possibilities of what might have actually happened. So that can be a bit of a Debbie Downer when it comes to having a skeptic on your team. If anything that happens, very, very quick to disprove it, in the sense of, well, that hasn't been proven, so why are we even looking at that? It can make investigating difficult because there isn't the possibility of even just a slightly remotely open-mindedness about it. And again, as well, personal experience, they might personally experience something but then dismiss it as well. And it could have actually been something we don't know. Even if it's something explainable that we haven't even come across yet, they will be quick to dismiss it as well. Hello, Monique. It's good to see you, lovely. So there's that too. And I'm talking through my nose. It's the nasal breath still. So that's a bit of an idea with skeptics. There are pros and cons with it. As I said, very, very important to consider that for both. Hi, Damo. Believers. Now, this is interesting. So the pro of having a believer or believers in your paranormal team or investigating paranormal phenomena, possible paranormal phenomena, is that they're already open to the idea of the afterlife. They already believe that it's there. They believe that ghosts and entities exist. It's a done deal. There's no argy-bargy about it. That's just how it is. The good part about that is that they are always looking at ways to try and communicate with the other side. So they look at ways and trying to communicate with spirit to see if it'll come through, whether it's using, glass dowsing or different types of equipment or anything like that. They're already open-minded to the possibility of the afterlife or know of it. So there are different ways and methods that they often will try to create in order to find, ways to communicate with the afterlife. There's that. Another key thing I've also found with people who identify themselves as believers is that they're more open to other people's experiences. So they'll be more open to the possibility when someone's felt something, like they've been touched or pushed, or they've heard something, they're more open to hearing that person's experience as well. Personal experiences, again, I said, are very, very difficult to try and quantify because it's just such a inner thing. So having somebody who's a believer, I think, it's easier to draw out those experiences from people. People feel more comfortable talking about their own personal experiences, and they're more considered within an investigation if you're dealing with people who tend to be more believers in paranormal investigation. That's all right, Cat, sweetheart. So that's that. There's a couple of pros there as well. That obviously, a lot of the stuff that we do within the paranormal is based on the possibility of an afterlife. So if you've got someone who's a believer, that's half your battle. I mean, half the equipment we've got, some of the methods we use is trying to communicate anyway. So being a believer, well, then that just kind of goes neatly into that little package then and there. Yes, and that's interesting because now, Kaz, I'm actually going to go into the cons. So you make a very good point. So Kaz says that everything is paranormal and even demonic. So that's what I'm going to do into the cons of someone who has got a believer mindset or identifies themselves as a believer, is that everything or most things that happen could actually be considered, as according to this person, as being paranormal or being from the spirit realm. And that may not actually be the case at all. And I think that's probably, when it comes to frustrations, is the biggest frustration. Just like it is with skeptics, where the biggest frustration is the fact they're so closed off to the possibility of an afterlife that you can't move anything through or discuss any ideas. From a believer perspective, it's everything is. And then you've got to try and think about the fact, well, they're going to think that that something could possibly be demonic or something is spirit when it can easily be explained. So that's the first part of it. Another con with somebody who identifies themselves as a believer is that trying to explain that information to them can be really difficult because they're very steadfast in their belief. So if, say for instance, there's been pipes banging, or there's a tree that's knocking on a window or something like that, and well, actually no, that was the tree that was knocking. No, it was within time to my questions. It was twice, and then it was 3 times. So it really wanted to say yes to this. No, it's almost like it's like a snowball effect. They run with it as well, and sometimes that can be difficult if you're in a particular location. Again, even more so difficult if you're dealing with private residential domestic cases. You've got to be as logical and as methodical as you can and level-headed when dealing with those types of cases, as opposed to maybe going to somewhere like Q Station like I was last weekend. So again, it's a difficult process. And again, not everybody is a hardcore skeptic and hardcore believer. I found it very rare over the years to find somebody who's either one or the other 100%. There are a few, but they're extremely rare to come across. They're usually in that gamut. They're usually, at some shade of grey. And that's why I've always been a big fan of, encouraging people to be open-minded, to be a shade of grey, not be just one side or the other. It's as I said, it's the only way to be as balanced as you can when it comes to paranormal investigating, because we don't know everything. We know a lot. Science has explained a lot, but there's some things that haven't been explained just yet, and I think it's good to be as open-minded as we possibly can with that kind of stuff. Now, Jill says sometimes they don't want to see logic even as a believer. They just don't want to. Exactly, that's exactly it. And that's when you've got to really pick your battles, to be honest. Depends on the setting. Like I said, if it's a private residential case, if this person's part of your team, you'll know of them being of that particular way. So it's like, okay, well, I understand that that's what your thoughts are. It's considered. We'll take it on board. But at the end of the day, we need to be here for the client. We need to figure out what's going on, and we need to look at both sides. Again, if it's something like Q Station or Monte Cristo or somewhere like that, Waverly Hills, then you can probably run away with it a little bit. You may not be so sort of focused on trying to convince, or no, you can never really convince because you're dealing with someone's belief system, but more so try and educate. Don't even say educate, because that just means it's forced, but provide information to them, and whether they're going to take it or not, it's completely up to them as well. Yeah, it makes it so hard on the team situation because it's when it comes down to, yeah, exactly. So your team dynamics as well. So if it's good to have a great cross section of team members, but if you've got a hardcore skeptic and a hardcore believer, it's that in itself is a whole management. And I'm talking hardcore. I'm talking really like level in that sense. They're not that shade of grey. That's going to be a lot of good people management, if you can get my drift, because those ideas will clash a fair bit. As I said, both sides are equally as important, but it's I wouldn't wish that on anyone, to be honest. And again, it's very rare to have in the same team to have those two opposing ideas in an actual team themselves. So that's another thing to keep in mind. But yes, pros and cons with both. Being a skeptical individual, it's very important to keep things level-headed, really methodical, logical, based on facts. Having a believer, there's a possibility of an afterlife. We're looking at the possibility of an afterlife. Having believers on there are really good. They'll bring new ideas. They'll look at new ways of communicating with the possible spirit entities, all stuff like that. You'll never sway a hardcore believer. I know, exactly. That's so true, Dan. And you'll never sway a hardcore skeptic either. That's why I say shade of grey is the best spot to be in. And like I said, it's okay to change it as well. So for myself, like I mentioned, depends on the case. Some cases I will be a little bit more on the believer side, and sometimes I'll be a little bit more on the skeptical side. So and also that will change as far as study that I do. I mean, I'm reading a lot more skeptical articles and things like that lately, because I'm going to be going to Skepticon. So I want to see what's out there, see what arguments and ideas and stuff like that. And some of it has just been painful to read through, but it's good. Eat a lemon, do something each day that scares you. But I'm like, there are gold nuggets in it. There are things that I can see. I'm like, yeah, I can understand. I get where that's coming from. So That's, again, I've always been a big believer in reading information that does challenge your beliefs, particularly with the paranormal as well, because it keeps you well learned. You understand all aspects of looking at this fabulous topic that we're just all equally as passionate about, and also understanding other people who investigate it as well. Very true. Hi, Maggie, gorgeous. How beautiful. Personal experiences are dicey to dissect. Exactly. Personal experiences are very, very difficult because it is such, like I said, it's such an internal thing that happens. You can't sit there and say to somebody, you didn't experience that cold breeze and that whisper in your ear. Well, they did. They experienced something. Was it paranormal? We don't know. And again, that's if you deal with private and residential cases. That's a whole other realm that you would be very, very familiar with as well. It's taking that information on board, but whether can you verify that, where you can quantify that or recreate it, again, that's a whole kettle of fish. That's half the reason why parapsychologists scratch their head and do tests in labs and all sorts of stuff. And that's why field investigations can be a little bit more difficult, because it's more than likely spontaneous in those particular environments when you're trying to find out information. I don't feel we should ever be afraid of having our beliefs challenged or changed. Exactly, Kat. A mind is like a parachute. Works better when it's open, but then they say don't open it too much because then your brain will fall out. So it's finding that balance as well. I think it's having the right mindset and the right sort of thought process when it comes to that is really, really good too. The problem with hardcore believers is that they're the same with the hardcore Christians. Ooh, that's really controversial. Like this, you can present them with volumes of evidence or lack of. Yeah, exactly. So it's, once someone's set in their ways, they're set in their ways. And if you've got a hardcore believer and a hardcore skeptic, you're not going to change their minds. It's great to be as learned as you can, but if they're really extreme, you're not going to change their mind. So if you do have one or other in a team, it's just accepting their view, them at least being diplomatic with their own as well. Either side, you can agree to disagree. It can actually happen, but you like Nate says, you cannot fight one with the other. It's just not going to work. Trying to convince, forget it. Don't even remotely try and do it on social media. It doesn't work. Trust me, I've seen lots of explosions, and I'm sure many of you have as well, based on that stuff, because people are attacking other people's beliefs. So it can be really freaking cool on. Not to have your beliefs ridiculed, though. That's another good point too, Maggie. Not having your beliefs ridiculed. My family and friends say have different beliefs as well. So again, it's a level of respect. Like, I may not agree with some of the information that's out there. Some of the stuff I've read really does, yeah, like I said, it's eating lemon kind of stuff. But I respect it. I respect the resource. I respect the information, where it's come from, and the person who's written this information. And also from a believer perspective, you have to respect the fact that maybe someone's had a profound experience, as we've mentioned, very hard to argue with, and has a full belief in the afterlife and the ghosts and spirits exist. You've got to respect that. And as much as it may not be something that you agree with or not as well. If they don't love Ghostbusters, they're not worth your time. Damn straight, Glenn. Damn straight. That's what he said. It was skeptical believer. Doesn't matter. Ghostbusters. I'm going to have to draw the line there. Love it. Love it. Love it. All right. So I will sign off, beautiful people. But yeah, use your comments down below as well, and even on YouTube as well. I'd love to know your thoughts. If your thoughts are, if you agree, if you disagree, if you've had an experience dealing with someone who's on the other side of the spectrum of where you sit. What your thoughts are, yeah, by all means, use the comment section down below. And thank you so much for tuning in. Next week I won't be on, because I'll be madly packing like a headless chook, because it'll be the night before I fly out for Scarefest. So it's in a week's time at this time of this recording, where I'll be talking about demonic possession, possible alternative explanations. I know a lot of people have actually seen that talk as well. So now it's time for America, the Midwest, to actually get this particular topic from an Aussie for the first time. So that'll be happening later next week. So I'll be flying out. So apologies for that for those who will be looking forward to the next one. But at this time of a recording, there won't be per se. So I might actually post up another one that was actually really quite interesting in its absence. So do take care, everybody. Thank you so much for watching, and yeah, keep investigating.